Hey Joe, thanks for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to have you in studio. I really enjoyed getting to tour your facility last week and just seeing all the great things you guys are doing at Patterson.
Yeah, it was good having you there, and I'm glad you were able to come and see some of the technologies that we're implementing in our training department.
It was really amazing. Like I knew just from seeing the posts that you've made on LinkedIn and all the success stories, and you could tell there's a lot invested in the training program. But to actually get to see the facility and all the different areas and how invested your trainers are.
Yeah, they've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into that place. It's been a year and a half now since we moved in, and each trainer's contributed in their own way in building out the classrooms and the various simulators and everything from painting all the way to plumbing. We've done it all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know when you told me that about how, like when you guys moved in there, it was like you really had to kind of rebuild it. And it had been like, I don't know if I remember you saying if it was abandoned, but it was in pretty bad shape.
Yeah.
And then to see where it is now, you wouldn't believe that it had been in that kind of condition.
Yeah, it was part of two acquisitions, and then we basically came into it, and it sat idle for several years, and so when we first got in there, it was a matter of cleaning everything out, figuring out what space we had, what we could do with it, and then starting to build it up from there.
That is really great, and just seeing like, especially like what we were you were showing me the electrical area, like that was pretty amazing to see, and just the education that I got briefly from taking the tour, I can only imagine what the guys from the field are getting coming into training programs like that.
Yeah, on the electrical part specifically, so Johnny Coburn is the trainer that covers all that. Johnny has 15 years with the company and 30 years in the industry, and he really put a lot of effort into building everything out by hand from memory, and taking advice from the field on what they want and what they need, and then putting that in his simulators. So he's put a lot of work into it.
That's awesome. And having that communication with his experience and just his take on things and then fusing that with the guys from the field, I mean, like that's going to be a very unique environment, but also like really really tangible to get that new knowledge and education, like kind of bridging those worlds together.
Yeah, and he takes a practice of doing theory plus hands on. So not only is he teaching, then he can take him to the labs, which you walk through, and he can bug the systems and make them actually do the hands on practical part of troubleshooting. And so when they go back to the field, it's not alien to them. They can actually say, "Hey, I remember Johnny teaching me this. I remember this component. I know what to do now."
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that just makes all the difference. So it's hands-on but out of harm's way. And then you don't have all of the other elements, the stress of getting to work, being on location. It's in a obviously a controlled environment, but when you walked me outside and we were looking at the shop, like I really felt like I was in West Texas. It was so amazing. And also I didn't know it was such an industrial area over there.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. And so when you were outside, we saw the frac pump, and you saw how big the engines were, and it could be intimidating when you're in the shop as maybe a new employee. And so to your point, that's
Hmm.
why we try to have it in a controlled space. It just makes it easier for the person to learn and really pay attention to what we're teaching them.
Yep, and that I can see that being like really like not only like that relaxed environment because it's controlled, you don't have all those other factors, but also just building up the confidence and the team atmosphere before even getting out to the field.
Yeah, exactly. And on the maintenance side, so Martin Calafell, you met him.
Oh yeah, Martin was great.
Yeah, 30 plus years specific to the maintenance industry, and he came to us and helped us build out that maintenance program. And I would say that would be the one program that's a little bit tougher to train, because for a frac pump or a blender or whatever piece of large equipment that we have out there, it can be intimidating, and it can be tough to go out on a piece of equipment. But when you can break it down to the component level and bring that in the classroom and have them hold that component in their hand and start to understand it, it helps all those students really understand what they're doing and then put it to practice.
That's cool. And he was like you can tell he's an educator too. Like just like really getting so into the tour and jumping in and explaining things and sharing his knowledge and I mean you both like were just so really like just the detail of like your positions there, like you like coming in, like I can see how invested you are in making it a successful program and facility. And then Martin in his niche within the industry and in his experience and just the passion for wanting people to succeed and for wanting it to be successful for the whole company.
Yeah, I think you see that within the whole team. I think if you brought any one of the trainers in here, I bet you our answers would be pretty close to being the same,
I could see
because
that.
we all share that same passion.
Hmm.
And one thing I've always told all the trainers is, I don't want us to be there to teach. I want us to be there to help people learn. And so if we see somebody struggling, it's not a matter of saying, hey Breezy, I can see she's struggling. Let me see what I can do to fail her. We want to take you and say, what can I do to help you? Pull you to the side after class. What are you struggling with, and what can we do to help? So that's the culture that we want to build at our training center.
That's refreshing to hear, and I could have used that training 10 years ago when I was in the field. And I know we talked about it before because, the oil field, the old school mentality of the oil field is you kind of you figure it out as you go along. You either make it or you don't. And I feel like we're coming into this era where, I mean, there's more. I mean, it's better for your company when your people are trained, and I mean, you're safer, and it's less turnover, and people are wanting to stay, and you invest in your employees to hire them, but being able to kind of take a step back and, I mean, zoom out even more and want them to succeed on a higher level, like that to me is like real leadership in the industry. And I think that's what stood out to me so much. Like, your post, like you do a very good job with telling the story and showcasing what's really happening there, because it's like one success story after another, and seeing all the guys lined up, the infamous wall with certificates. But you take it even another step further than that with the plaques on the wall. Not everybody gets to be on the plaque. I forget what the requirements were for that.
Yeah, that's right. So we call it's top of class, and so for every product line, frac, cement, wireline, maintenance, we have an individualized trophy built for them. And for each class that comes through, there's a minimum requirement. You have to hit the 95% score to be qualified, and then it's the person who scores the highest after that. So if you have two people above it, it's whoever does the best.
Gosh.
And we've seen since we've implemented that, the students are so eager to see their scores, but then they also put in more effort to study.
Mm.
And a perfect example is Monday afternoon. I took a call late in the afternoon, and it was 6:45 or 7 before I walked out of the shop, and so I walked over to the training building to make sure everything was closed up, and there were students still in there working on their stuff, their presentations, what they're doing today.
Oh, wow.
And so I messaged Joseph McKinney, who's the frac training manager, and I said, "What'd you do to these guys?" I said, "They're all still in here working." And he said, "Joe, we have to raise the bar and keep raising it." So that's what those students are working for. They want that trophy.
That is
Yeah.
very cool. Inspiring to
Mm-hmm.
hear. Is, it's like the stigma of going out into the field. It's just a job. You're just a number, just a body. You're there to turn the wrenches, not to think. But I think that it'd be just being able to get beyond that, because there's so much to learn. There's so much to know. And, to really instill that confidence in people, and, also to give them the opportunity to like meet the expectations and exceed their own.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we're seeing that today with the supervisor class specifically that we're doing, and that's the same class that Joey's teaching. And what we've seen is we've had some candidates come into the supervisor level 1 class, and then now they're in the class today, which is supervisor level 2, and they're already asking, what's the next step? We want to learn more. And it's inspiring to see these guys and girls wanting to push the bar and learn more of what's out there, what are we not getting, and it's our job to make sure we provide that and keep giving them what they want.
Well, and also, like, I remember because when I was there, the class was going on, and I felt excited for them that they were there getting the opportunity to do that, because not all companies offer something like that, to have such an extensive training program and facility to get to go and like take that time.
Yeah, and I think what's valuable about what we have is, we have a blend of trainers, whether they be from the telecommunications background or heavy industrial background or oil field background. We all bring a unique set of skills, and what we've done is, as a team, we sit down and say, what all did we go through personally, what was beneficial, and what are things we can maybe take out. And so we've taken these classes and brought in the best of what we know, and then incorporated what the company needs the student to know as well. And so we mesh all that together, and we have a very impactful class, and they want more of it. So that's what we're building.
One success story you guys were telling me when I was there was the recent Art of Communication,
Hmm.
where they were a little iffy in the beginning, but by the end they were really sold on the value of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe Graham, so he's the one that facilitates that class, and Joe has a way of getting to you. So you'll come in, and same with these students, they were hesitant. I don't need to go to a presentations class. I can speak in front of anybody. I don't need to do this. And so the first question he asked the class is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you to be here today? And he said, show of hands of 1 through 3s. And 4 or 5 people raise their hand, and it goes on. And but by the end of the class, Joe asked him, where do y'all think now? And they're all shaking his hand. Thank you very much. This class was wonderful, and it changed how I'm going to do this. It changed how I'm going to approach this situation. And so he makes an impact on those guys and girls that are going to take them through their career. So he does a really good job.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, because that's like you said, that's definitely something that you could overlook. The value of learning something like that, that kind of skill to be able to communicate, to be able to talk in front of people, and to have a trainer like that that can be so impactful. I mean, because that's like all of these things, all of these trainers that the everyone that participates in these training programs, the guys and the girls that come in, they're taking that back with them. And so they're not only taking that for themselves and each other, but there's a ripple effect
Mm-hmm.
because we're setting a new standard, and they're representing it, and they're the ones that are out there raising the bar. And so it's exciting to see it. And that's why when I reached out to you and wanted to really like showcase and talk about this, it's like the more we have this in the industry, like the better the industry gets. And everyone wants that because it can be such a struggle, the cyclical changes and the uncertainties. But if you're trained properly and you have that much more training and education that you can absorb, you can weather the storm, and you can troubleshoot, and you can help other people, and you can have your own version of leadership amongst your peers, where it's not just show up, here's your PPE and good luck. And so it's definitely a culture. And I mean, it's the short time that you guys have been doing this, it's really it sounds like it's really developed and evolved quite a bit.
Yeah, it has. And one thing I want to point out that you mentioned, we're talking about building future leaders. And so as a company, you're always evolving. And so we also have to keep in mind that we're teaching and developing the future leaders of the company. And so when we take a step back and decide what we want to develop, it's not necessarily what do we want, it's what do we need to build the future leaders.
Mm.
And so all of these things fall into place. So Joe Graham with his professional development, or Joey Martin or Johnny with their technical development, all of those things build together to build the future leaders.
Yeah, and it was amazing to see it because I'd been watching on LinkedIn for several months and reading the stories, and so then getting to meet the trainers and see the classrooms, and also see that it's very well taken care of and maintained, and so there's a lot of pride there, and that is also going to influence anyone that comes into those classrooms because the standard is already set. Like this is the quality, and this is the opportunity where you get to learn. And I mean, in some of that equipment you can see the investment.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you don't have to know what was spent to know that, like, obviously it was an investment and it's taken seriously to have that provided. And so anyone that's walking in there is going to kind of feel that. And so right away, it's like they're already being influenced by what's possible before they even get started, just because it's set up for success.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And um, your words are perfect on that. That's exactly what we do.
That's
And
awesome.
I can't speak highly enough about the team that we have. And uh, like I said, they all put their own efforts into it, and whether it be painting the equipment or building the equipment or just simply maintaining it, they do a wonderful job. And that's my hope, is that the students that come in feel that and can appreciate it just a little bit more.
Yeah, that's so exciting and so great. It's like when you come into a role like you have, and it's about the team. It's like there's so much that you can do in your leadership role, but then to have a team of leadership that's just like you said is just as invested and has so much experience and being able to put all that together, it's really just a powerhouse of knowledge and possibility.
Yeah, it really is, and the sky's the limit for us. We're always brainstorming. Even yesterday, we took delivery of a new trainer, and so a training piece of equipment, not a trainer. And so everybody's looking around, seeing what it is, and in everybody's mind they're like, well, now I want to do something better. I want to do something
Okay, I could see
newer.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so they were yesterday. Johnny was there, and they were all day playing with the new trainer, running through the simulations, seeing how they can start to incorporate it. So um, it's just moving the bar every day. Try to move the bar just a little bit more.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate that. Like I said, it's refreshing and it's inspiring, and just really sets you apart that much more. And I imagine you have a lot of people that want to work at Patterson and stay at Patterson long term because something like that is offered and available.
Yeah, that's our hope, right? We want to make sure that we're providing all these employees with the tools that they need to succeed. And if we're not, that's on us. And so we have to continue to again raise that bar and listen to the business, because that's what's more important. If we're not listening to the business, then we're not giving them what the tools that they need to be successful in their role. So, and that all goes back to people staying, because
Hmm.
if you give them the tools to succeed, they'll promote, and those type things make people happy and make them want to stay. So um, it all falls back to listening to the business, and taking feedback from the employees as well, to make sure that we make them successful.
Hmm. Absolutely. And in your role, and it's the director of technical training. Do I
It,
have that right?
it was as of Monday, but
Oh, are
yeah.
we
So
moving on
yeah,
up already?
so I just took a new role, VP of Learning and Development. So
Congratulations,
yeah,
that's
thank you.
exciting.
Yeah. So now not only or am I going to be overseeing the technical piece of it, it'll be the professional development piece. And so for me, I'm excited because now we can bridge the gaps.
Oh,
And so
wow.
now Joe Graham is part of the team, and so now we can really start to see, how can we piece these various things together, and collaborate more. And I think it's an exciting time for me and the business and my team. Um, Hopefully, it gives us more opportunity to get some more resources.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
so we'll always petition for that.
of
But
course.
yeah, it's exciting times for sure.
Wow. Well, I mean, and that goes without saying, like you said, just like the being able to evolve and grow, and also even in just your leadership role to for anyone to see like there's more out there. Like you said, the sky's the limit. Obviously now like coming into a new role and being able to integrate that while everything is continuing to grow. It's a really amazing ecosystem you guys have over there that even though like you said, it's like, of course there's always room to grow and expand, but with what you have and what you've been given, like there's no stone that's left unturned. Like I couldn't believe walking through all of that, seeing just how extensive and intricate of the detail that has gone into that whole facility.
Yeah, and it's changed, right? I mean, if you look at day one when we first moved there, we thought we knew what we needed, and so we set everything up and laid it out and designed and developed all the stuff for what we thought we needed. And as we continue to listen and learn, it's changed. And even the week before you came last week, the week before that, we were rearranging again because we knew that there was going to be more stuff coming, and so we're brainstorming what do we have to do. And so there's still stones left unturned, but they're just out there. We just don't know it yet.
Hmm.
And again, it all goes back to just raising that bar and making sure that we're doing what we can to make it the a best in class training center.
I love that. And when you came into that role, like you'd done recruiting for a long time. Was that what you had done prior to this role?
Yeah, so starting my career, I started in as a frac supervisor for another oil and gas service provider, and then worked all through the U.S. and then transferred to Canada. And then in my time in Canada, I completed my progression and then moved back to the U.S. And that's where I got into training and development originally. And from there, moved into recruiting, and then that transitioned me over to next year, and then moved into training, and then L&D now. So it's been a fun ride, almost
Yeah.
20 years. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
So this trajectory is kind of been the path that you've been on, and being able to see how it's done all over, because the Canadian oil field's very different.
Hmm.
And so and I remember, like, when we were having lunch the other day, like, the I was listening to, and, like, from my knowledge and experience that I've had in the industry, in my roles with my podcast and different people I've talked to, it made me realize, speaking with you and Martin, like, how much there's still left to learn, which is exactly why I started the podcast. It's a melting pot. It's a matrix of different ideas and experiences that are all connected, and how we all work together in different ways, whether we know it or not. And so it was interesting for me to learn from you and to hear more about the part of the industry that you come from, because I've never been in recruiting. I've never been in the technical training side and learning and development. And so it was fascinating to think about the people that you've come into contact with recruiting, having them come into the industry, and showing them why. And so it does seem like the path has been clear for you, that you have had all of this experience, and that you're in a really great position to show people why they should come into the industry and stay and learn and grow and develop. Like, it seems like that kind of becomes a mindset, and kind of part of, like, your own like your own personal mission statement.
Yeah, and when I was in recruiting, it's getting tougher. I would say for oil and gas specifically, I think that the generation now has seen maybe a family member or somebody go through the ups and downs,
Hmm.
and so it's gotten tougher from a recruiting standpoint to bring that talent in. But the ones that you do bring in, I mean, the industry's changed so much. Um, it's almost you're retraining a newer generation, if you will, with new technologies and new processes versus what we're used to. Um, but it's a challenge for sure.
I bet. Like, I could only imagine, and trying to get people to understand, like, the benefits, like you said, because when you see struggles and don't want to live away from home, or all the reasons why.
Hmm.
But when you're in a position that you are now, where the employees are either already there or they're wanting to work there, you're offering them the resources to learn and to learn more, and they can kind of make that decision for themselves. You're not necessarily trying to convince them how
Yeah,
great it is from the jump. It's like they already have an idea that they want to be doing this.
yeah. So once they're at that point, it is easier, right? I mean, they want to learn more, and again, it just falls back to us to be able to provide that to them. And if we start to fail, then the business fails, and so there's a lot of pressure on us to stay up with technology. We mentioned the timeline, and if you go back to even probably when you started in the oil and gas industry, it's changed, and it continues to change. We're at the point now where we have electric fleets, and I couldn't have never imagined that whenever I first started. And so, part of the newer generation is incorporating that newer technology and trying to figure out what's next so that we stay ahead of the curve as well.
And speaking of the when we were at different times of the industry, was it Joey we were talking to, and he was raving about 2007?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was such a different time, and it was a lot of fun, and there was a lot of money to be made, and just, like, no limits anywhere. But what we had kind of countered that with, where we are now, is how things are more manageable and sustainable, and you can plan a little bit. Like, you can have a life outside of your job. You can, maybe not have to live in, a different part of the country than your family. And so it's a little bit more established than that. We were in a major boom at that time, but, of course, that ended, and things haven't ever, quite been the same. But at the same time, it seems like there's opportunity now to learn from all of these different times in history, of just our own recent history, of how much it's changed. And like you're saying, like, with the electric fleets and technology, it's tapping into a totally different way of operating.
Yeah, and I think that that's why Patterson UTI and the companies under the umbrella are so successful, is because you talk about where we were and where we are. The companies that are no longer here are the ones that failed to evolve and
Hmm.
and not look and see what's changing and how do we adapt to that to stay ahead of it. And I think our companies have done that. We see where things are going. We understand that being more efficient today is more important than ever. That helps to drive our costs down, which helps us to be more successful. So that's, again, that ties back to us teaching the right things and making sure that they walk away with the right mindset of how to be successful and keep our costs down by being efficient. And so all those things go back to making the company successful.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I completely agree. I mean, you either evolve or you get left
Yeah.
behind. And I've seen so much of it because the standards do, like overall in the industry, the standards do keep getting raised, like with safety and different trainings that you have and requirements that companies have to be able to get MSAs, to be able to bid on work. And so companies that aren't willing to evolve and do that kind of work, like eventually they will become obsolete. They won't even be able to participate in the work because they haven't kept up. And I mean, and times are changing quickly with the developments in AI and technology. I mean, I can only imagine like how much faster it's going to continue to change because, looking back over the course of just oil and gas in general, I mean, it was kind of slow moving. I mean, we didn't have the communication and the technology for years, and now suddenly it's everywhere. And like you were just saying about electric fleets, like that must be really something to see happening like in real time.
Yeah, it's impressive, but then it also is a challenge because that's a whole part of the business that we aren't specialized in as far as training yet, and so we're actively trying to develop it, which is part of that trainer that came in yesterday was a component to that. And so for us, it's continuing to push and figure out, okay, so electric's the way we're going. Now, what do we need to train our people? And so it's always a challenge just to stay ahead of that curve and keep up with the business. And when you have newer technologies coming out, it kind of goes back to recruiting as well, because the people we have in our training team now, they're not the ones that are the specialists in that area. And so
Mm.
now it's like, okay, recruiting, who have you brought in that maybe we can start to bring into our organization to start training this latest and greatest technology. So it all ties back together.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's I guess the social stigma that, kids these days are growing up on their iPads and their iPhones and they don't know how to do anything like we used to know how to do without them, but it kind of seems like there's opportunity now for that they can apply some of those skills and what they're learning from being so influenced by technology at young ages that they're actually going to reap a lot of benefits where it's natural for them to see things that are electric and AI and all of these things, whereas we're having to learn it in reverse.
Yeah, and I mean, technology is a benefit. I mean, it streamlines the business, makes everything more efficient, and so back to what you said earlier, you have to figure out what it is and mold to it, or you're going to get left behind. So there's a lot that the newer generation can teach us. We just have to be open minded and realize that the way we've always done things is not going to be the way that it's going to be done in the future. And if there's a better way, let's work together and let's see how we can implement that and make everything better for everybody.
I like how you framed that. And I mean, it really is about being open minded. I think a lot of people are resistant to change when they're going to have to learn something new, or, maybe the way that they've been doing it they prefer. And that can be difficult. And I mean, I've witnessed that myself. And I mean, and that can be not just with technology, that can be with anything. It's like, you get in a certain part of the industry, you know it, you learn it, you're comfortable, but then work slows down, production stalls, things change. And if you're willing to get outside your comfort zone, if you're willing to try something new, sky's the limit. But if you get stuck on that, that same channel and it's like, well, nothing's happening here, we're laid off, work is slow, then life is passing you by when there's plenty of opportunity. And I mean, it can be difficult to transition. I've done it numerous times when you are forced to pivot. The job is ended, the company is gone, like whatever the case may be. And so when I got into doing my podcast and really started seeing more of the industry and being able to showcase it and tap in, it's like I can kind of look in hindsight, of course, as 2020. I'm like, I really had more opportunity. There were more opportunities than I realized. I just didn't know they were there.
Mhm. Yeah, and when you're doing something for so long, you feel like you're siloed into that's all you can do. And so when you are challenged to do something different, it opens your mind and makes you think, okay, now what do I need to do? And so, but at the same time, you can use what you've learned in the past and apply it to your new role or whatever the new task
Hmm.
may be. And so as long as you're continuing and evolving with whatever's going on. Just be positive and you'll be successful.
I agree with that, and that's helped me a lot because I remember feeling very discouraged when I was coming out of my field career because I'm like I've worked on facilities and pipelines and shops and I've done all of this and like what am I going to do with it now? And it was kind of like when I got my communications degree. It's like, well, I walked across the stage and I achieved that goal. It was something that I'd always wanted to do. I'm like, what am I doing with all of this? And it's like I never had a clear understanding of what I was trying to achieve. And honestly, I don't think I ever really had a clear vision. I think I was just stumbling around with some ideas and they kept evolving. But it was also the change of the times. It's like, the biggest one was the pandemic. A lot of us had, no choice but to make some changes. And a lot of new possibilities came out of that, just naturally occurring, and a lot fell away. So it was like and it's great to see people in person. I mean, we don't need to do everything over Zoom, and it's fantastic to be able to actually be together. And but we realized a lot of the communication, some sales, marketing, things like that. A lot of this could be done online. Marketing is important, advertising, being able to showcase what you're doing, and so everyone being connected, there's value in that. And so I put all of my experience with the field, my communications background, and put all that together and built what I have now. But then I had to learn all of these new things along with it. And it was like, how am I ever going to do this? And it was like, I would have to come back to myself. I'm like, if you did all that, like you can do this. And
Yeah.
it's a lot simpler. And I mean, we're living in pretty simple times in a lot of ways. Like, if you can learn how to use a little bit of technology and you're open-minded, like you said, just being willing and being positive, you can open up a world of possibility where if you're trying to stay on that old path, it's going to be short, and it's going to be even harder because it's becoming obsolete. And I think that is one of the biggest problems is holding on to the way things always were. And if we continue to refine that new path and adapt to it, then that's where the path just becomes success. And then you're able to build and grow from there.
Yeah, and you have to have mentors, um, because anytime you transition, and I'm sure you had mentors, and that's where my team falls in place as well. Is not only we're there to help you learn, but when you struggle or you need help or you get to the end of that path that you feel like you can't move forward, reach out. We'll help you. We'll help guide you onto that new path. Or if you do get onto that new path and now you're stuck, what can we do to help pull you out of it? So you're spot on with everything you said, and at the end of the day, we all as a team we have to be responsible for our company, and anybody that we bring in, we have to make sure that we leave ourselves open and don't just say call me if you have a problem and just say that and leave. Be meaningful when we say it.
Right.
And yes, you really can call me if you have a problem. We'll help you work through it. And the class that Joey has going right now, the guys were calling him a couple of nights ago because they were stuck on their presentation, and being available and open to help them is what's going to help them on their pathway. So
Yeah, I love that, and you're absolutely right. And I mean, especially in the last couple of years, I've sought out more mentors because, like I said, I started in the field. It was very much just, yeah, when I learned how to run equipment, it was get on the machine and see if you can figure out how it works. And I wasn't employed to run the machine, I was just a laborer, but it was like you had the opportunity to learn if you wanted to, but nobody was really going to stand over there and show you how it functions. So there were a lot of things I learned how to do, and just like basics that I never figured out because I didn't know. But once I actually became an operator, and there were a couple guys on location that would teach me a few tricks here and there, and you pick it up, and so mentorship can come in different shapes and forms. And sometimes it is just, if you can make it, you'll pick it up as you go along. But it's so much better when you're actually in a position where there are mentors reaching out to you, not just waiting for you, or because it's like you can be very intimidated by asking a question or not knowing how to do something, especially when you're in the field. But when you get into something technical, you need that training. And another thing that you guys were telling me about when I was there was the program for the gray or the green to gray hats.
yeah, yeah. So Ernest and Hector run Green to Gray, and those guys take tremendous pride in that. We actually had a class graduate this week, so I need to get their post up.
That's
But
awesome.
what we want to do is make sure that you, 'cause to your point, in the past, you'd hire some operators and they would go out, and typically it was a timeline. If they can make it 6 or 9 months, we'll give them their white or gray hat, whatever it may be. And what we wanted to do is, instead of doing that, just giving it to them, let's bring them in. Let's make sure that they really understand what they're doing, because being a green hat, a new person in the field, it's important. You can actually put yourself and others in serious danger if you
Hmm.
don't know what you're doing on a piece of equipment. And so we bring them in now, and we really take time to walk through the basic processes of the pieces of equipment and safety processes and procedures that we have in place, so that once they get that new hat, and they go back to the field, everybody knows, hey, they're held to a certain standard now. And they take pride in that, and those guys enjoy doing that class, and you can see the students' excitement whenever they get to walk away with their new shiny gray hat.
That is
Yeah.
so awesome. Yeah, 'cause I remember I was telling you guys that I mean, I've worked for some, just really cowboy outfits, right? Like you're there, you get your hard hat, figure out how to put it together, you're just, trying to make it work, and they came out with the green stickers. But it was almost like, you see somebody wearing that green sticker and it was just like they just didn't, like they had a stigma about them already. Like this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And it's like, well, he doesn't. That doesn't mean he can't be taught or trained or mentored. But, when that kind of company culture isn't established, it's not going to happen on its own. Especially when, there's whether there's strains in leadership or disconnect. If you don't have that, you're not pouring into your people the way you guys do, then you're already going to be kind of isolated and alienated. Like, you don't know what you're doing. If you're a self-starter, or maybe you see where you can be of use or of value, you're gonna work hard. Maybe somebody will take an interest in you, and that can just be just a one-off company. Like, Patterson is so established and developed. It's like being able to just continue to raise the bar. But companies that don't have that foundation built, somebody that just comes into the industry because they need a job, they may not last because they don't have any kind of structure. There's no training, and there's no real understanding of what they can achieve, and so they may give up. Now they may give up anyway. I mean, not everybody is willing to put in the time and the hours, because it's difficult. It's very challenging, but I think it's also something to be proud of. You should be proud that you work in the oil field, that you can do things, you can learn, you can contribute to what we're doing with energy. But again, with social stigmas, it can there's not always, like, that's why I love seeing all the pictures that you post about the guys and their achievements, because you don't always see that, you don't always see those accolades.
Yeah, and I mean, I would challenge people that listen to your podcast. Maybe there's a company out there today that's not doing some of this, and hopefully they're not our competitors, but hopefully somebody that maybe is a smaller outfit that sees this, and they can reflect and go, we can do this too. And at the end of the day, we want our industry to be safe. We want everybody to go home the same way they came out, and so hopefully somebody hears this, and maybe they can go and make their place of business just a little bit safer and a little bit nicer for people to work. And that's kind of the goal. At the end of the day, yes, we're doing this just for Patterson and everybody else, but we want our people to go home safe. And if we can start to create the culture here, other people can do it too.
Absolutely, I agree, and I mean, and I definitely see a lot of companies that they have their own their own way of training and teaching and appreciating their employees. But I do really value seeing the leadership when it's put out there, just for everyone to be able to see what can be done. And because, like you said, they can create their own system if they're not already doing it. And so just being a positive influence and a trailblazer for the ones that aren't doing it are certainly going to be getting left behind as quickly as you guys are moving over there in Cleburne. But that, I think, is, from my experience from the beginning. And I learned the way that I did, and I think that it was valuable in its own way. But I'm not I don't have the mentality like you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I'm always learning. It's not like, well, that's the way I was taught, that's the way I'm going to do it. I am ready to learn more. And so I'll go back into, different areas of what I've learned, what I did working in the field. And I'm like, what was I really doing? And so that I have a better understanding now, because the position I'm in, that people are going to listen to the show and watch the show, it's like, well, I want to make sure that I'm giving the right information. So even if you don't have the mentorship right there at your fingertips, you can watch the podcast, or listen to what you guys are doing, or follow Patterson, or maybe even get employed at Patterson if that's seems like a good fit. That I'm putting the information out there, so I feel like now I have a responsibility to present what's going on in the industry, to like you said, make the industry safer, and just kind of be able to be that leadership and influence, just from showing what's possible.
Yeah, yeah, and that's great. And I think I do the same. You reflect back on where I came from. How was I taught? How was I instructed to do various things, and how can we make them better? How can we change that to where it's not the same for the people in the
Hmm.
field today? Because was it right the way that you and I both came in the field?
Right.
Probably not. There's probably things that probably shouldn't have been done, or ways that we were trained that probably weren't correct. But to your point, we have to learn new ways, and the ways that we did them were not right sometimes. So we have to make sure that we're not doing that today and don't carry those bad habits on.
Hmm.
So make sure that we're teaching people today correctly, and that now they can take that back to the field and give that same instruction to their peers.
Yep, absolutely. That's awesome. It's just a little bit of course correcting and taking it to the next level.
Get you on the right path.
It's the right path, and
Yeah.
straightened out.
Yep.
That's exciting. So tell me now, in the position that you're in now, and kind of the future, and I have no doubt that it'll just continue to grow and evolve. But what are you most excited about what's coming up for you guys?
Um, Excited, and I feel challenged. I'd say excited because I feel like I can bridge the professional development and the technical piece together now. HSE's part of it now, so we have a new member coming to the team that's going to help do some HSE training in Cleburne for us, and a challenge because I know that there are things from a leadership development part that we have to develop, and it's the unknown.
Mm.
How do we achieve that? But I'm going to go back to my basics, and what does the business want? So meeting with the various leaders, and understanding what they want to see. Where does the business see itself going? And align that with our culture and everything else. And I think if we do that as a team, I say we because it has to be a team that does it. It's not just gonna be me, but we have to make sure that we build what the business wants and what the business needs. And I think if we do that, it's going to be really hard to fail. And so I'll lean on my current team that we have now, and the new team that's coming over, and I think it'll all work out great. And we just have a lot ahead of us now, more rocks to turn over.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that that's something that I have had to embrace, because I would be very fearful of the unknown and just worrisome all the time. But I also, like, I adopted that from being in the field. Like, you have this sense of impending doom and waiting for the shoe to drop, right? Like, you're gonna get laid off. The job is gonna end. I've worked on the pipeline. The job ends. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you get to the end of it one way or another. And I've finally gotten to a place where I'm like, well, I can continue to grow and build, and so stop worrying about what's going to go wrong
Mm-hmm.
or how it's going to end, and be excited. And so kind of similarly, and I feel inspired by hearing that. It's like, go back to the basics. It's like, one, instilling the confidence, like, well, what have I been able to get through in the past? Like, what challenges have I overcome now that have either become strengths, or at least some type of awareness and opportunity. And so I'm like, well, let me take on some new challenges, but make sure that my foundation is solid too. So always looking at what's possible, but not getting too far ahead. And I think that for myself, like, that's definitely been an achievable way to grow and be successful. it's like my show, I have a different guest every week. And so I can take what I learn, not only from how I present the content, because that has its own challenges of learning how to use different apps and editors and things of that nature, but also really being thoughtful about the people that I'm talking to. And like you said, like, what does the business want? What do the people want? What do the people need? What does everyone need to hear?
Mm-hmm.
And then I can get even deeper into what I'm presenting, and it's not more because I mean, like, the whole thing, like, I just kind of created in my mind, and the vision just kept coming to life. And so it's exciting because I'm kind of in a junction to where I can look at it more thoughtfully, not just trying to get people in the studio on time and make sure that I'm here too. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's a pretty good clip. Let's go with that one. And I'm trying to write a description. I mean, because it's a lot when, it's like you're the only person, and it's like you're booking and, interviewing, and then, distributing and everything else. But it's exciting because there's so much valuable content for the industry. And so it's like, this is my one small part of the industry, and I can continue to refine it. So I think just being able to go into the unknown, a lot like the people that come into the training facility, and know that you're going to be guided, and you're going to be better when you come out of that.
Yep, that's the goal. And yeah, I remember you telling me stories about the various people you've had and different profiles and dress codes and
Oh
all the
yeah,
other
all of it.
stories you told me. And but it sounds like that's helped to mold where you're at today, and
Hmm.
so it sounds like you've been successful. So that's great.
Thank you. And it has been a learning curve constantly, just always wanting to refine and be better. And so, I mean, like, we're episode 59. It's like, imagine all those conversations, all the different people. And I'm always trying to get different people, different parts of the industry, different takes on things, to where we're, like, again, it's like it's a matrix, and we're just filling in those links to show that it's not, us versus them, or, you know everybody works together. And the more education and communication that we have, like, the more functional everything is, I think. And again, just being able to follow you for so long, and seeing the consistent stories, and all the different people that are coming through the training program. It's like, I feel like I've been trying to put myself through different types of training programs so that I can, like, evolve just as quickly. Because I mean, just trying to take on so many different parts of the industry, and getting out of my depth all the time. And it's like trying to have, these intelligent conversations about areas that I've got out of what I've experienced, or, like, my work history. It's like I came from midstream for the most part. And so it's like trying to talk upstream and downstream and everything in between. It's, I'm obviously going to, get into parts of the industry that I'm not familiar with, but I think that is where I have found the most value for myself, is being able to showcase it and push myself to learn. So I really appreciate what you and your team are doing, and everyone that I got to meet over in Cleburne, and just being able to also see what's possible.
Yeah, yeah, we're glad you were able to come down and tour and see and meet all the different people and the various pieces of equipment that we have. And it's exciting times for us. We're looking to the future, and how can we continue to develop and be better.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate hearing that, and for you coming on the show today, and sharing everything that you guys have going on at Patterson.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for having me again.
You bet. And thank you everyone for watching Power of the Permian. We'll see you next time.